right, so today we are in HaSatan. Did the devil make you do it? Part 3. I'll tell you what, putting this together, the devil's in the details right there, I'll tell you what. Let's remember what we've been learning so far, okay? The words that have been linked to and used in reference to what we would call the devil or HaSatan are words that have to do with being an artful, malicious person, a slanderer, an accuser, someone that attacks other people's reputations, an adversary, a stumbling block, someone that gets in the way and hinders, okay? These are all ways of understanding that word of either in the Hebrew or the Greek that is used for that kind of thing, okay? So in the Hebrew, it's Satan, okay? It's Satan. And we see that in what we've read up to this point in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, we see Satan just being someone who gets in the way, hinders, accuses, is an adversary, an enemy, okay? In the Greek, we do see, like in Revelation, we read this where you see the word dragon used. Okay, that word specifically is referring to a dragon or a huge serpent. But in the same verse, it then refers to the serpent of old, which would be the word ophis, which is talking about an artful or malicious person, someone who's skilled at being malicious, okay? Someone who's pretty slick at doing harm. And then we have diablos, or for devil, which is a slanderer, an accuser, someone who attacks people's reputation. And then they have Satanas, which means adversary, okay? In very few places in the Tanakh did we see it referring to an individual entity as being the being called the devil or Satan. We did not see that until we got to Job, really, okay? Where it was really referring to a specific being in that role of adversary. Yet that being we saw running around and at the sort of God council. You know, he was kind of up there, you know, and interacting with Yah himself without any issues, it seemed like, okay? So just trying to get this better understanding on what the scripture really teach us. Not what did Dante teach us, but what the scripture teach us. All right, Dante wrote the Inferno. The Catholic Church grabbed a hold of that and said, oh, this is going to be good weapon to manipulate people with. And that's what they did, okay? That's when they turned that into a weaponized idea that came out of fiction, okay? It came out of a piece of fiction. Now we're going to go into the New Testament. We're going to start in Matthew. And we start looking at this idea of HaSatan, or the devil, okay, in the Brit. So in Matthew chapter 4, okay, we're going to begin in verse 1. Then Yeshua was led by the Ruach into the wilderness to be tested or tried by the devil, okay, to be tried by the devil. This is diablos, right, meaning a slanderer or an accuser, okay, the devil. Now in Mark 1 and verse 13, it refers to being tried by Satan. So Mark chose the Greek Satanas, where Matthew chose diablos, okay? So we can see some difference there, all right? Luke, in chapter 4 of Luke, uses actually both. He uses both in trying to describe this interaction. So let's look at this here in Matthew 4. So let's see how this plays out. So he's led to be tested or tried by the devil, to be tried. So having fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the trier, the tester, came and said to him, so I guess look at all of the interactions that you know of with Yeshua and, say, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes. What were they normally, or every time, pretty much every time, trying to do? Trying to pull something out that they can accuse him for, right? That's kind of the testing. So it's not just the accusing. If you go back to Job, Yahweh says, well, what do you think of Job? And he says, well, I got nothing I can work with in Job. And he says, yeah, Job's pretty good. And he goes, yeah, but that's because you give him everything. So he creates a situation where Job could be tempted. And Job passed the test. So it's not like this accuser, this trier, this tester just accuses, because remember, Job does not get accused of anything initially because there's nothing to accuse except saying you spoiled him. So he's actually accusing Yahweh, not Job, right? So the tempter first is tempting to see if he can draw out of you something to accuse you for. So the accusations are not just generated out of this other entity. He's going to create a situation that might test you, tempt you, try you, all right? And because of that, you may choose poorly. And if you choose poorly, you'll have something that can be an accusation now against you, because now you've done something, okay? As we see in here in the verses, so first of all, we're hearing about his being hungry. And the reason that we're hearing that is it's not so much that he fasted or not. We're not going to deal with the fasting thing for right this second. The point is, I think we could all agree, to some degree, because somebody might argue with me, he was in a weakened state. Now, those of you who would make a spiritual argument would say he was in a stronger state, because fasting is supposed to bring you more vertically connected and that kind of thing. But on a physical sense, he was in a weakened state. It says he was hungry, okay? The tempter does a lot of his work when you're in a weakened state. That's kind of what I'm trying to bring out here. In understanding HaSatan, we should understand that you will mostly deal with that in a weakened state. That's the same thing with Job. He said, I can't do anything with Job. He's so strong. He's got nothing there's no weaknesses. He's spoiled. He has abundance life. His family's great. His wealth is great. Everything's great. There's nothing to work with here. Take away stuff, put him in a weakened state and see if he doesn't curse you to your face, right? So Abba allows this stuff to play out sometimes because he wants to see how you handle a weakened state. Because it's in the weakened state that you may be more susceptible to fail the test. Not susceptible to the influence, it's still a test of you, okay? We don't point the finger and blame HaSatan. Point the finger at yourself. You failed the test. He just created an environment, or maybe you created the environment that you were susceptible because you did dumb things that left you in a weakened state. Point is, you were in a weakened state, okay? So he's hungry. He's in this weakened state. Now, by the way, if you want to bring the fasting in, fine. If you know you're going to end up in a weakened state, then maybe you need to do something that strengthens you vertically as you enter into something that's going to be in a weakened state. And I think fasting does that, okay? I think it's one of the points of fasting, is to clear all these other things out of your life so that you are better vertically connected and strengthened in a sense. You're strengthened while physically you're weakened. And I think that's kind of a good parallel of the idea of when the flesh is strong, the spirit is weak. When the spirit is strong, the flesh has to be weak, okay? Because whichever one's stronger wins. It's kind of like I talk about when your logic and your thinking is weak and your emotions are strong, but when your logic and thinking is strong, the emotions get pushed down a little bit, and right, the stronger one wins. Stronger one wins. Now, so the trier comes to him and says, if you are the son of Elohim, so the tester going to come in your life and says, if you are what you claim you are, oh, you claim you're a child of God. Oh, you claim this, and you claim you're Torah-observant. You claim you're covenanted. You claim you're Messianic. You claim whatever it is you're claiming. The trier might test you with that. Say, oh yeah, you claim this? All right. He says, so if that's what you are, then do this. Whatever that might be in your life. He might tempt you with something, okay? He says, well, if you're the son of Elohim, command these stones to be made bread. You're hungry. By the way, did you notice that he already knew that Yeshua was hungry? It doesn't say that Yeshua was running around moaning about being hungry. I mean, HaSatan knows what you're struggling with, what your weakness is, what your issue might be. Now, it doesn't say Yeshua was having a hard time with it, but he was hungry, right? And so Satan goes, well, look, if you're the son of Elohim, make the stones into bread. By the way, this also gives us a little idea of what son of Elohim means versus just the children of God as we are, as his created things. This identity of a being called son of Elohim apparently could turn stones into bread. That's a whole different level of thing, right? Okay. And he answered, said, this is now Yeshua answering, it says, so bear in mind here, Yeshua is answering, did not say, that's dumb, I can't do that. Okay? Notice what he doesn't say in this conversation back and forth with HaSatan. Okay? The devil or Satan, depending on which gospel you're reading, right? He says, It has been written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from the mouth of Yahweh. Okay, so he answers with the words from above. In other words, I hate to quote Bilam, but Bilam said, I can't go further than what Yahweh said I can do. I can't go against or beyond the word of Yah. That's what he's just saying. He's saying, no, bread comes from above. I don't need to worry about making stones into bread, okay? So then the devil took him up into the set-apart city and set him on the edge of the set-apart place and said to him, so you can believe that this is physically, literally happening, although then maybe somebody would have seen him on top of the set-apart place. But this is all kind of going on in almost like, remember in the Matrix when Neo and Morpheus are having a little fight in that fake dojo, right? That's kind of what's going on here. This thing that's happening in the desert, they're now going to this, sort of virtual reality, and he's taking him onto the top of the temple, okay? Because nobody's seeing any of this. But this is a real battle that's going on, okay? Just like Morpheus said, oh, you think that, this is not real? He said, but when you wake up, you're still gonna have a bleeding lip, okay? Now, we're going through this, and then he says, and he said to him, if you are the son of man, the son of Elohim, throw yourself down, for it has been written. So he's like, oh, you want to play the quote the scripture game? Well, HaSatan goes, I can quote the scripture. Just remember that when you guys are doing your own little battles. He knows it better than you do. He doesn't keep it necessarily, but he knows it, okay? He's very aware of every word in the book. So he quotes it. He says, for it's been written, he shall command his messengers concerning you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, so that you do not dash your foot against a stone. You say, well, you claim you're the Messiah. Satan believed those words and those verses had to do with Messiah. Son of Elohim, he said, well, go ahead and command him to do that. And Yeshua said to him, it has also been written. We're going to play a battle of words here. You think you know the book? I wrote the book. I can quote. It's also been written, you shall not try Yahweh your Elohim. Now, we could take that in two ways. Him claiming to be Yah. Also him claiming to be, if I am fully submitted to Yah, that you would be asking me to do something that tempts him. Why should I say, well, he's already offered me protection, so I should do dumb things like throw myself off the roof of the wall of a big building, just expecting him to catch me, okay? That's foolishness. He says, no, we're not going to tempt him. We're not going to do that. We don't try or test Yahweh or Elohim. Okay. So then in verse 7, then in verse 8, again, the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the reigns of the world and their esteem. And he said to him, all these I shall give you if you fall down and worship me. So there, again, this battle is going on. Temptations. Okay. Now, he didn't put the idea of this, that, or the other thing in Yeshua's head. He said, look, I'm offering you something. That's what the devil kind of does. He says, oh, here's an idea. Why don't you go run and do this? Why don't you go run and do that? You know you like this. Go do that. But it's still got to be you. And he's feeding on something already in you, right? Now, it's in Yeshua eventually to be the head of everything. It's in Yeshua. He's the one who took stuff and made bread out, into like loaves and loaves and loaves, right? He fed thousands with just a loaf of bread. Like he can make bread, right? So he's tempting him with things. Now, this is before he did that, right? This is chapter 4. He's just starting. But we know he's the guy who can do that. Now, so he says to him, all these I shall give you if you fall down and worship me. Then Yeshua said to him, that's so stupid. You don't have that kind of power. But you notice he doesn't say that. Again, I like reading in and seeing what's not there that should kind of be there if Satan didn't have that kind of power. But apparently, he was the God of this world. Apparently, he had authority down here. Apparently, he could do these things. So Yeshua says, go, adversary, Satan, for it has been written, you shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and him alone you shall serve. I'm not putting anybody between me and him. He's already told me I'm going to have all of these things anyway. Why do I need to listen to you? Which, by the way, that same thing applies to you guys. He's already told you what's in your future. Why are you being tempted and distracted by others who want to tempt you with a different future? Or not so much a different future, because this really isn't a different future. Yeshua is going to get all of this anyway. But it's a different way to get there. See, Satan was saying, I give it to you right now. Yeshua was told, you're going to get it when I give it to you. I'm going to place all these things under your feet. Satan is saying, hey, just worship me, I'll give it to you now. Okay? That's also part of our problem, isn't it? The metaphors that are all in this beautiful little situation here is we have a real problem with delayed gratification. Because you'll want to take the shortcut saying, oh, but I can have it now. But you were promised it later. But this one said I can have it now. I don't want you to raise your hand, but probably a lot of people in this room have bought into some little quick, get-rich-quick scheme or other in your life. And part of the reason you did was you were looking for the faster way to get there. There are no faster ways to get there. There's just hard work and wisdom from people that know what they're doing, right? Guidance and hard work. It takes time and it does develop. Some things can work a little quicker than others, but a little quicker doesn't mean like, do this, you'll be rich next week or something, okay? It doesn't work that way, okay? Elder and I have told all of you many times, if you came to counsel, that we love that you want to get a side hustle, some other way to make some money more than just your job, but you should never have a thought to quit what you're doing to do your side hustle full time until that side hustle has been going for a good long time and consistently made you as much or more than what you're making in your regular job. Which means for a while you can have two big incomes, or at least two full incomes, the one that was in your first job and the one that's in your side hustle. Let's say you were making $30,000 a year in your first job and $30,000 in your side hustle. Good, now you're making $60,000. That's pretty good. But don't the first minute you get $30,000 or making the equivalent of in a month what would be $30,000 think, oh, I'm going to quit my job and do the side hustle. No, I want to see that side hustle working like that for a year, so I know that it's solid. But then I'm working two jobs. Yeah, you are. But you're also being smart and safe. And all that extra money you're making, you should be using that to solidify everything. Do your baby steps. Get your $1,000 emergency fund, get your out of debt, get your 3 to 6 months, income replacement, okay? Matter of fact, I don't even want you side hustling until you got at least your $1,000 emergency fund. All right? Because you'll start putting money into that and get distracted. But the point is, don't shortcut what really needs to be gratification that's delayed. You have to wait until it comes later. As a matter of fact, really, isn't it true that everything we're looking forward to doesn't happen in this life? It really happens in the kingdom coming? Not everything. I mean, there's stuff I'm looking forward to being a grandparent. I'm looking forward to being a lot of different things, right? There's things I'm looking forward to in this life. But I'm saying the big things that we're looking forward to, aren't they not in this life? So that means that we have to wait. We have to wait for it, okay? And if you're 20 years old, you may have to wait another 70 years, 60 years before you're gonna get to that, if he doesn't come before that, right? And so, I'm 62, I'm expecting to be, 150, whatever, so I'm gonna have to wait. And there's plenty to do right now, getting me better and better prepared for what's coming, okay? And all along, I'm gonna have that little tempter trying to derail that, okay? He's artful, he's slick, but he's not coming up with stuff on his own. He's using you for the raw material. Do you understand? So what he does to you, he doesn't do to the person sitting next to you, because you're different. And he knows what works on one is not what's gonna work on the other. So whatever the devil is doing in your life, it's coming out of you. Do you understand that? Okay? See, you're not taught that in church. Oh, the devil's just an evil, mean thing that just comes in and just destroy and eat and seek and destroy. But the material to do that really is coming out of you. And if there's no material, he can't do it. That's the point of Job. He basically said to Job, I got nothing to work with. And then he came up with an excuse to justify it. Well, that's because you spoil him, right? But his first answer is, yeah, he's a pretty good guy, I guess. I can't do anything with him. All right? Unfortunately, most of us are not Job. We got lots to work with. Okay? Satan walks around you all day long with that. That was easy button. He could just blink at you and you get derailed, no big deal. Because we are too emotional, we are too weak, and so we are easy. We're easy pickings as far as the material to work with. Because all it takes is somebody looking at you the wrong way and you're totally derailed. Well, there's no toughness, I almost wanted to do it, maybe I wasn't going to say this out loud. Let's see if I can clean this up. Okay, I think I can do it this way. Remember I talked about going from the beginning and looking at people, like what they did well, what they didn't, what they struggled? I almost wanted to go to the beginning and go, man or wimp, or something, okay? Because you can see people when they're weak, that's when all the stuff goes sideways, and it goes badly. And when they're strong, it goes well. I've talked often about the battle between faith and trust versus, doubt and fear, right? Well, you know what? I think there's a big battle between strength and weakness. And HaSatan, you know what his job is to do? Bring out all that weakness. He's not preying on it. It's just sitting there waiting for somebody to pull it out and play with it. And it's not going to get fixed until that happens, until you deal with it. But here's what's going to happen. Someone's going to call you weak and you're just going to crumple up into a ball, suck your thumb, and just cry. I mean, instead of realizing, wow, I need to strengthen up. I need to toughen up. We're getting weaker and weaker. And so think of it as all the things that Satan does and pulls on is weaknesses in you. Okay? If it's an area of strength, he can't do anything with it. All right? Everything he works with in you is a weak area in you. It's a weakness. And his job is to help you strengthen. He doesn't know that's what he's doing, but you can't strengthen it until it gets brought out. It has to be exposed. Maybe not in public, but at least to you. Where you go through something, you go home and go, man, I'm weak in that area. Well, good, now you can fix it because now you're aware of it. Or you can crumple up in a ball and just whine and complain and say, oh, I'm just weak and I'm no good. And it's a spiral into self-defeat. I listen to a lot of people, I keep quoting them to you, and one of the guys I love is David Goggins, and, go listen to him. He doesn't use clean language, but go listen to him. But the thing that he said in a couple of the videos I saw recently is, people come to him and say, David, teach me how to do what you do. And he goes, no, I can't, because you can't do what I do. If you could, you'd have figured it out. Okay, yes, you can come to me and say, how do I do this how do you tweak this one thing or whatever? But when you're trying to understand how do I get up in the morning like I do and do the work that I do and push the way I do, I can't teach you that. You have to discover it in you, okay? So he's like, no. And a lot of these guys, they're yelling and screaming and saying all this stuff, and they're like, but really, I know I'm wasting my breath with most of you, because most of you are just gonna think, oh, that sounds so cool, but it's not me, I can't do that. You read all this, and you're like, I don't know, I watch all these guys, but I can't do that. Why can't you do that? You gotta find something in you beyond what you think is just in you. Stop looking through the eyes of whoever told you you were nothing. Stop looking through the eyes of you telling you that you're no good. Look through his eyes where he said, I made you, you can do anything. I made you to be amazing. Amazing doesn't mean you're going to be the top whatever in the world at something. It means you're going to thrive, okay? And you're going to make a difference in some people's lives. People will be better because they met you, spent time with you, and had a relationship with you. That's amazing, okay, when you have that kind of an impact on people. And so the tempter, though, going to look for those weak spots. So he's thinking, okay, maybe there's an ego thing with this Yeshua guy. All right, well, you think you're a son of Elohim? Fine, make the stones bread. Oh, yeah, no, why don't you just throw yourself off of here and let's see if the angels catch you. Tell you what, bow down and worship me, I'll give you everything. First of all, he should have called him liar, liar right there. He says, you're not giving me nothing, okay? Even if you had it to give, you want the power yourself. You won't give anything to anybody. It's a lie. He's the father of lies, okay? But you gotta understand where the lies come from. The lies come out of the fruitful garden of your nonsense and weaknesses, okay? The raw material for the lies comes out of you. He's gonna tell you a lie that you wanna hear. So the material is in you. Does this make any sense? Okay? I know nobody's told you this. I know nobody's taught this. I've never heard anybody teach this, and I've never really taught it fully this way. I've mentioned it in teachings a little bit here and there. But we need to understand that Satan cannot touch you if you're strong. I don't mean like tough, I mean strong. In other words, where you don't have weak areas in your life that are susceptible to him messing with and poking and touching and, you know what I'm saying? Tickling your ear in a certain direction or not. And it's not just tickling, by the way. He uses pissing you off pretty good too, getting you mad at this person or this situation, and your anger and your disgruntled negative, he just wants you to get negative about people, things, situations, whatever it is, all right? Look, I'm not perfect at that. I do get upset. But Elder can tell you, because he said it from the mic before, I let it go fast, okay? Because if I don't, it's a weakness that can be exploited. Do you understand? I think that's the best way to word this. Satan exploits weakness. Don't have a weakness is nothing to exploit. I have no drug or alcohol weaknesses. You know what I never get tempted with? Tested with? Drug or alcohol. I just have never had an interest. So I'm not bragging about having such strong willpower. I just don't have any interest. Never did, okay? I had a couple of drinks one time as a teenager. All it did was make me tired, and I didn't want to be tired. I didn't get any benefit out of it. And I said, this is stupid, never did it again, right? And as far as drugs, they did the best thing they could have done to my mindset and my personality. When I saw, I don't know, they don't do this in schools anymore. They showed us the drug video, you know, when we were kids. This was back in the 70s, okay? It showed you the drug video. And something they said in the drug video hit my buttons, which was, it can affect your DNA and your genetics that you pass down to the next generation. Okay? I didn't know if it was true or not. I believe it is, but I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to be a father. I wanted to get married and have children. I didn't want to do anything that would screw them up because I did drugs. I could screw them up plenty easy with other things. It's just through my, mediocre parenting skills, whatever, okay? But I'm just saying is, that was my button that said, I'm never doing this. Not that I even had an interest before, but that was it for me. It was simple enough. I'm not ruining or affecting my body that could hurt my children, okay? I wasn't even listening to that was gonna hurt me. I was actually of that mindset, even though I was in like 6th grade, 5th grade, but that was where my head was at. Guess what? That was a strong place in my system. I'm not messing with me if it's gonna hurt them. So guess what HaSatan couldn't do? Couldn't push that button. There was no button to push. Okay? A lot of you need to go have surgery and have your buttons removed. Okay? Cut that out of there, right? How do you get that removed? You just get strong in that area. Well, I can't, well, this person hurts my feelings. Stop. You're weak. Don't get mad at me. Okay? I think of like the song by Twisted Sister, where he goes, you're all worthless and weak. One of the most frightening looking people of all time. Even for the rest of us in the 80s there, but And the guy was like 6'7". He was a giant guy on top of it, dressed in, I don't know what he was dressed in. But sometimes we are worthless and weak. By the way, weak is worthless. Your value comes out of strength. Do you understand that? When people need something, you can only give it if you're strong in that area. Can we make sense with that? Our value to others comes out of strength, not weakness. Weakness means you need, strength means you can give. How's that for a little phrase to remember? Okay, you can't give out of weakness. You can give out of strength. You take out of weakness. Okay? You want to be a giver, get strong. Okay, you can't give out of weakness. And HaSatan's role, is to exploit your weakness. Now, Abba lets him do that so you can realize, oh man, I'm weak in that area. I got to fix that. Okay? It's not that he wants HaSatan to exploit it. He's just allowing him to do it because it actually has a useful purpose if you make use of it correctly. To realize, oh wow, I'm weak in this area. Okay? So he says, so Yeshua says in verse 10, says, go. Enough of you, get away from me. So he says, you worship Yahweh your Elohim and him alone. That's what it says, all right? It's been written. And the devil left him, and see, messengers came and attended to him. So the messengers came and attended to him anyway, when it was all done. Notice this all happens. I love that it starts off with he was fasting. Not from the point of view of strengthening because of fasting, but the fact that this all took place in a weakened physical state. And that's when you guys mess up the most. Anybody get cranky when they're tired? Anybody irritable when they're overworn and worn out? How many times have you said to somebody, oh, I'm just overwhelmed, or there's just too much on my plate, or these are all weak statements. I'm not saying they're weak like you shouldn't say them. I'm saying they're statements of being in a weak state, all right? If you're overwhelmed, you are not strong, you're weak at that moment, all right? If there's too much on your plate, you are weak in that moment, okay? Because when there's not too much on your plate, you feel strong and you're handling everything, right? When you're well rested, you're strong. When you're tired, you're weak. When you're not getting good nutrition, you're weak. When you're getting good nutrition, you're strong, all right? I feel great and strong. I mean, I eat this ridiculous shake that I make that's got everything in it in the world. I'm not recommending you do it. Probably wouldn't work for everybody the same. My system handles it. But I feel great for the whole rest of that couple hours between, whenever I eat my late lunch breakfast thing, when I eat it, I feel well energized, strong, and ready to go and don't have any, I'm strong, all right? When you're weak, you get sick because your system is weak. And that could happen because you're stressed, meaning emotionally, you're doing too much, there's too much on your plate, you're not handling things and dealing with things, or because you're doing too much, which is a physical stressor, okay? I never get emotionally stressed. Well, I shouldn't say that, probably like for a minute here or there, right? I never really get emotionally stressed. I do get physically stressed because I push my body more, my system more than it probably should be pushed, because I don't think that I always think I can handle everything, okay? And then my body will go, we're not really appreciating this. And after a while, I'll start getting muscle tension, headaches, and things to try to get my attention. Hey, you're pushing us too hard, okay? But some of you get that from your emotional side, which is a much greater weapon for HaSatan. That's when you feel overwhelmed. You feel worn out. There's too much on my plate. And you say these words. I never say them. I'm stressed. Anybody use those words? I'm so stressed. This is stressing me out. I'm worn out. Too much on my plate. I never say these words, okay? Now, I may actually have those things happening, but I'm not going to speak it. I'm not going to give it any life. If I think I may have too much, I'm going to take stuff off my plate. Or I'm going to go lay down and get some rest. I'm going to do something to handle the problem so I can be strong. Okay? I think part of that's why I never really get sick. I know you guys can remember 4 or 5 years ago when I had this terrible pneumonia, which was a bad consequence of a terrible allergy that dripped into my lungs, okay? But that's from allergies. I haven't been sick, like under the weather type of thing. I don't even remember. I don't get sick. Elder could tell you, I never call in sick, all right? I'm never out. But I work hard to be that. I'm not bragging about anything. I do what's needed to make sure I'm strong. Why? Because I'm 62 and you need me to act like I'm 42, okay? So I don't have any problem with that, all right? But you have to own you. If you don't own you, the devil's gonna walk in and own you. It's still you owning a part of you though. What I'm saying is he's gonna find your weaknesses and speak into your weaknesses and encourage you to keep spiraling down, okay? But if you own you, there's no place for him. He can't do anything to me. I know a lot of you guys are all worried about demons and this and that and the other thing. I'm not worried about any of that stuff, okay? Because there's no place for them to purchase. There's no place for them to lay down or grab a hold. I don't have a spot that they can land on, okay? I'm not afraid. I'm strong, all right? And I'm not bragging again. I have worked to develop this over 50 years since I was a teenager, okay? Okay, so never think any of this is bragging. I have worked at this since I was 14, 15 years old when I discovered that you can actually understand how our brain works and our systems work and our motivations work. And you can get a hold of that and purposely design that into what it needs to be. And I relentlessly study that. I study that more than I even study this. Don't get mad at me for that. I know what this says, okay? But there's still so much more for me to learn about this and how it works and why it does or doesn't do whatever, all right? Emotionally, relationally, physically with health, the mental and emotional health. I mean, all of that, finances comes out of all of that, okay? Listen, and HaSatan tries to address this all the time. What did he say here? He said, oh, you think you're this? Well, then do this, this, or this. Why was he doing that? To prove to him that he wasn't. He wanted to say, well, you're not this. You're nothing. You can only go what's in line with what you are. Do you understand what I just said? Well, I want to be, maybe you make $40,000 a year. Oh, I want to be someone who makes $100,000 a year. Well, you can't make $100,000 a year until you become a person that makes $100,000 a year. You have to become a person that can do all that, live that life, whatever. You have to become that person. Well, I want to be healthier. Become the healthier person. Okay, it's not just changing a few habits, it's changing a whole lot more. You have to be the person that has the result. HaSatan's trying to convince you not to be that person, because the part of you doesn't think you can do it. So he feeds on that. Doesn't think you can be that, because it starts off with what? You claim to be, if you are the son of Elohim, so you claim to be, I'm gonna be wealthy, I'm gonna be healthy, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be that. Well, that's a claim. HaSatan's gonna say, you think you're gonna do that? You can't do that. You're weak. You're too lazy. It's too hard. It's too much work. Why would you want to put in that kind of work? You can't do that. Especially when the first time you go to do it and it pushes you a little bit, and then you wake up exhausted and worn out and physically or mentally or emotionally, and you're like, oh man, if I have to do this every day? Well, I don't know. You build up those muscles emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever, it gets easier. Of course, you still have to push harder then to get the result, but then you're okay feeling exhausted. I was a personal trainer once upon a time, okay? Worked in the gym, trained people. And what I told people was this: if I wake up in the morning, same thing I told them if they did, if you wake up in the morning and nothing is sore the next day, you didn't do anything. That's one of my measurements still today. If I wake up and nothing, I get out of the bed, nothing's sore. I mean sore like not like busted arthritis. I'm saying sore from like I used it, okay? Then I know I didn't do anything. I don't mean like bad pain, but something that feels like I worked it, okay? And so I like to know in the morning when I wake up, that's one of my measurements of how I feel about yesterday and what I did the day before. As far as my physical, did I walk enough? Did I lift enough? Did I do something? Did I push against some resistance or do something? Because if I don't feel any soreness, I didn't do anything. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay? Same thing then with your mental and emotional. If I'm not somewhat exhausted the next day, I didn't push that a part of my system. You really should fall asleep without a problem and sleep well if you really exhaust yourself. Okay? And if you can get all your emotions strong instead of weak, because the weak emotions that keep you up all night. Okay? And the fact that you didn't exhaust yourself. All right? You exhaust yourself, you're going to fall asleep. All right? Which, by the way, that's why I don't go to bed until I feel like I'm tired. Because some people are like, well, why don't you go to bed earlier? I can't. I'll go lay in the bed. It won't, because I have to wait till I actually am tired. You know what happens when I go to bed when I'm tired? I fall right asleep. Okay? You know the kind of life you really should want? The one where you go to sleep when you're tired and you wake up when you're rested. That you don't have to use a clock. Wouldn't that be a great goal? Just wake up when you're rested. A lot of you do that on Shabbat. That's like the one day you get to do that. You just sleep until you're rested. Feels good, doesn't it? Then I listen to Goggins who says, you should be getting up between 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning. No, thank you. I've gone to bed between 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning. And I was great with that. Back in those days, I woke up at the crack of noon. So, on a regular basis, I still only got 6 hours sleep or whatever it was, but and that's actually the times when I used to be like, all right, I talk to myself and I'd be like, all right, this is ridiculous. You need to go to bed because you have to get up at some point. And I'd have to talk myself into getting in the bed because I was just working, going. But you got to know you. Here's the thing. Let's bring this back because some of you are like, why does he go off in this direction? Because the devil, Satan, the adversary, he knows you. Problem is, you act like you don't know you. You hear me? Okay? He knows you. Inside out, top to bottom, emotions, health, in every area of your life, he knows you. Problem is, you don't know you in some areas. Or if you do, you ignore it, you don't listen to it, you don't learn from it, okay? That's why he knows what buttons to push. I promise you, he never tries to push the alcohol drug button with me because there's no point. So he's looking for the ones that there's a point. So he has my passwords never work. But even that only gets me upset for 3 minutes until I go and reset it for the 50th time, whatever, okay? So it really doesn't accomplish a whole lot. But what do you have that can trip you up? What's he trying to do here with Yeshua? Trip him up. And not just trip him up in small ways, because we have that too. This is a everlasting life kingdom sort of trip up he's trying to do here with Yeshua. And he does that kind of stuff with you too. He doesn't want you in there. But he's not going to do anything to you. He's going to give you opportunity for you to screw it up. So if you don't end up somewhere, or if you end up where you don't want to be, don't blame anybody but yourself. Oh, sure, he was cheering you on and maybe put a thought in your head that was already there just to bring it to the surface, okay? But you are the one who did it, if you do. If you choose not to, you're the one who gets credit for not doing it, right? Okay? But it's still going to always be you. So this is a beautiful thing. I know everybody reads this and thinks, oh, this is how Yeshua earned his right to be the whatever. He overcame the king of the world. And yes, that's all true. But look at this in a metaphor and picture for you. Okay? And then look at what happens at the end. He doesn't do any deliverance ministry stuff. He doesn't confess all kinds of things. He says, go away. He says, you've got nothing for me. I already answered all your things. Go away. And it says, he left. That was easy. Look, I know a lot of people are big on deliverance ministry. I don't like them. I think they end up doing worse than what you ever started with, okay? I had people leave our ministry when they heard me say that because they were all into this deliverance thing. Spiritual warfare, everything else. Spiritual warfare is not, look, we don't have prayer teams here praying for all of this stuff. Nobody goes around in the morning and prays over every chair. Congregations that do that, all right? If you don't have any place of purchase for them to get a hold of you, there's nothing for them to do, that spiritual warfare is yours, okay? And if any of that came into this building, it could only affect anybody else weak in this building with some place or something for them to work with. It doesn't put anybody else at risk, okay? Did you notice that Mrs. Job did not have the same reaction that Job did? They were both affected by the same things. One was affected in a different way than the other. She said, curse your Elohim and die. He was like, I got to figure out and understand why he let this all happen to me. Because there must be a reason, Because I know all things are possible for him, okay? There's nothing that's withheld from his desire. So there must be something going on. Emunah. Job shows you emunah, okay? All right, so in Luke, there's a little bit of a difference here, okay? And this is an important difference that I want to bring out, an addition, okay? So it starts off the same. Yeshua, being filled with the Spirit, was led out into the wilderness and was tried for 40 days by the devil, okay? Now, notice that here it says that it's not like he fasted and then was tried. He was tried for 40 days. So this was an ongoing battle, all right? That's the way it's described here. So the devil says to him all these different things about, the bread and the stone and all this stuff. And then eventually, when we get to verse 13, it says, when the devil had ended every trial, he went away from him until a convenient time. The devil may leave you alone, but realize he's always lurking about in case there's a convenient time. Now, we're told there's a convenient time that happens with Judas. But it wasn't actually Yeshua that it happened to somebody else that had an opening, a weakness. And we're going to get to Judas eventually in this here, right? But the thing is, I want you to know that if you win a battle, the battle's always available to happen again if there's a convenient time. And by convenient, meaning you open a crack in the foundation there. You open it, you create an opening for him to come in, okay? So I like that wording in chapter 4 here, this idea of he was waiting until a convenient time. Now, of course, Yeshua never gave him anything to do. So he had to work with those around him. He'll do that to you too. Oh, I can't work with you? I'm gonna work on your spouse. I'm gonna work on your child. I'm gonna work on your boss. I'm gonna work on your coworker. Because some of you will go to work and have like, oh my gosh, all blah, blah, blah is just broken loose and everybody's lost their mind. You had that last week, okay? I mean, he's gonna work on whoever around you might affect you indirectly. Indirectly, okay? And so that's, important for us to understand. Yet Yeshua shows with Judas, he says, I know what you're gonna do. I know that that's what you're gonna do, and it's part of the plan. Do what you need to do it quickly. He doesn't show any issue like, I can't believe you're gonna betray me. He's like, well, somebody had to do it, it's you. One of you was gonna be weak. The devil was gonna go ahead and grab a hold of whoever was weak, and that was gonna happen. He already knew. And so, with all of you, just keep paying attention. Are you weak in some area that gives him an opportunity to mess with you? And mess not just with you, but your journey, your destination, okay? Your destination. We're gonna talk about this a lot in the Level Up program, okay, at Sukkot, okay? But I'm gonna talk about it here. You are, right now, always, whatever the right now is, now, 5 years ago, 5 years from now, whatever that now is, you're exactly where all of your choices took you, okay? So if you're trying to get into, I know you guys don't like to hear that because you think you're once saved, always saved, whatever. But if you're trying to get into the kingdom, your choices are gonna get you there or not get you there. And HaSatan's going to try to influence your choices if you have weak areas where you might make bad choices or poor choices, okay? But everywhere, you are exactly right now, don't give me any arguments, don't get all whining mad at me. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, where you deserve to be, based on your choices. So don't whine and say, it's not fair, I should be somewhere else. No, your choices got you here. Not what your parents did, not what this one did, not because something the government did or something happened with the economy. No, you, okay? You are exactly where you got you. Don't blame the devil, don't blame God, don't blame anybody. You could have made different choices, but the ones you made brought you to this place, good or bad. Some of it was good, okay? But remember that going forward. You don't like where you are, make different choices. Now, some of them aren't going to change things immediately, so then you make different choices today, so tomorrow you're in a whole different place. But over time, you end up at a destination, right? Your choices. HaSatan is going to look for any of the weak spots to affect those choices. I'm trying to give you a real good perspective of what his role is, okay? By the way, I didn't say it here. We're going to get into it in some of the other places we're going to go here. It doesn't actually have to be the being. It's a role. It could, you know what? Mom could be HaSatan. Your sister could be HaSatan. Your child can be HaSatan. Your best friend could be, whoever is going to feed on, prey on, and get you to go in your weakness is acting in the role of HaSatan. Do you understand? Creating a stumbling block, a barrier, a left or right turn when you were supposed to stay straight. It's a role. It doesn't have to be the being known as, the one that was in Job, okay? Because we saw many adversaries being called Satan in the Tanakh that was not the one. It can be used as a common noun as opposed to a proper noun, person, name, right? Title. Lots of people can act in this role, hindering you, preying on your weakness. By preying on your weakness, I don't mean picking on your weakness, but getting you to go in your weakness, okay? Getting you to feed into or respond in weakness instead of in strength. Look, I'm not saying you have to all be big and muscular. I mean, you gotta have internal strength. Okay, you have to be strong inside to know when to say, no, I'm not going there. I'm not feeling that. I'm not thinking that. Because I'll tell you what, most of the conversations that we have during the week that people call in for is a lot of whining and complaining about stuff that they're just having a weakness. Well, this person did this, and it was mean to me, and this person talked to me this way, and I can't believe my daughter treated me this way, and my son did this, and my husband and my wife. It's all weakness. It's all just whiny weakness. Now, it's not the same as you say, you know, I had this situation, I wasn't really sure what to do with it, and I thought I'd get your advice. That's strength. Okay? Can we all admit that like 5-year-olds and younger, whatever, they're weak, they're children, they're toddlers, they're little. What do they do most of the time? Whine and complain, cry. Why are we still doing that as adults? I mean, I don't get it, okay? But we are doing that all the time. Aren't we supposed to grow past that? Why are we still whining and complaining and crying about everything? Well, he was mean to me. Really? What are you, back in second grade? I'm not mocking you. Own it and understand. We shouldn't be weak anymore in those areas. You could say, you know what, someone treated me in a way I really didn't appreciate. I wasn't sure how to handle it. Some of you call me and do that. I'm like, well, let me help you understand how to handle that. And then you learn how to handle it better. But when you let your feelings get hurt and you get offended, what's that verse that Rabbi Tom always quotes? He says, those who love thy Torah are not easily offended. Ooh, you guys love his Torah, right? Why are you so easily offended? Because boy, you guys are. Not all of you, a lot of you though. Because almost every conversation we have, somebody was offended by something that somebody did. Okay? By offended, I mean somehow your feelings got hurt. All right? I'll tell you right now, you can't hurt my feelings. Okay? You know who can hurt my feelings? One person, my wife. Okay? She's the only one that I have allowed to have enough relationship where they can hurt my feelings. You can't hurt my feelings. Okay? Because that's a maturity. You shouldn't just let everybody and anybody that you care about on such low levels, like we, just have a social sort of casual relationship. Why would you let everybody hurt your feelings? Okay? And it's not easy for her to do it either. Do you understand what I'm saying? But why do you let everybody hurt your feelings and upset you and stir you up? And then all you do is talk about that for a month. Why would you give them rent-free space in your head? Okay? I don't understand that. But you do. Something happens, I might be upset about it for like 5 minutes, if I even that, and then I don't think about it again. It's gone, I don't talk about it anymore. It's not an ongoing over and over and over, just rehashing. Anybody know people like that in your life that have to say the same thing and rehash the same thing, and it just goes over and over and over and over again? Especially if it's about something somebody did to them. It's like, well, get over it already. That happened 2 months ago, you know? But we don't. And why? Because HaSatan loves to keep that wound open. And you do too. You love to, you keep peeling the scab off it, let it not heal because you want to keep that wound open. So you peel that scab off, take a little salt in there just to remind you. Why you do that? You know. You know what we did is, this is boys that are tough. You know what we did when we were kids? We ran around, first of all, for all you people paying attention that are like under 20, we played outside. We didn't have electronics, and we played outside on concrete. We didn't have backyards that were big enough to do anything on, okay? Which meant that we played things like tackle football on concrete. And when we played basketball, it was full contact. We had a thing called full contact basketball. No autopsy, no foul, okay? Anybody use that phrase when you played basketball? We did, all right? Man, you fouled me. You didn't fall down, you're okay. Nothing's bleeding, all right? But we didn't go home and whine and complain about it and cry about it. As a matter of fact, we go home and mom would say, there's blood on your clothes. Where'd it come? You didn't even know you were bleeding. You didn't know you were cut. You didn't know you were nothing. You just were playing and going and doing what you were doing. Anything and everything stops us now. I got a cut. Come here, let me see. And you can't even see the cut. What cut? What cut? My knees ripped to shreds open. The pants has now got a giant hole in it. That's how I showed up at home. Mom's about to give me a different reason to cry because I ripped my pants open that were probably a week old, you know, because I was playing with them on the street and tore them up. You know, my grandmother used to say I had scabs on my scabs because you just tear them up the next day, you know. HaSatan is going to be there to keep creating these opportunities for you to hold on to the negative, the things you're not happy with, the things that upset you, the things that disturb your peace, the things that make you depressed or anxiety. I don't know, again, I'm not judging anybody. I don't know if we didn't have this or we did have this back in like the 70s, but nobody used the phrase. I never remember one person I grew up with ever saying they had anxiety or stress or say, I'm depressed. I don't know what's happened. I'm not mocking the people that have that. I don't understand. Something happened generationally, okay? Anybody over 50 know what I'm talking about? Did you have people walking around telling you they were depressed back in the 70s and 80s? Or that they were stressed? Or that they had anxiety? I'm not saying they didn't, they just dealt with it, okay? If they had it. But we lived in a world where we weren't so coddled, weren't so enabled, weren't so entitled. We had to figure things out, all right? See, you guys now may not have parents home to help you. We had not only no parents home to help us, we couldn't go on YouTube and figure it out. We couldn't ask Google how to do something. We had to figure it out. Because nobody was home. We came home from school, it was empty. Mom and dad were working. We were called latchkey kids, right? You had a key to open up the lock, right? You had a key to, you got home, you let yourself in. You had to figure stuff out. You were hungry, you had to make yourself food. Some of you got kids that are walking around going, I'm hungry. You're like, so go make some food. I don't know. You can't make food? Maybe some of you haven't taught your kids how to make food. What are they going to do when they're adult? You know? I watched a great video this guy was talking about with his children. He said, look, child asked him, hey, Dad, I think my battery's no good in the car. Can you come and fix it for me, whatever. He goes, nope, I love you too much to do that. You can figure it out. So the kid went on YouTube and looked it up, and then he got the right wrenches, and he looked on some, and he did it all himself, and he was so happy about it. We do too much for our kids. Just tell them you can do it. You can figure it out, because what's gonna happen when you're not around? They're gonna have to do it anyway. They can move out, they can't cook, they can't take care of themselves, they don't know what to do with nothing, because you aren't making them do anything. Our parents are like, I'm too busy, you figure it out. They just weren't gonna do it for you, okay? Because they didn't helicopter us quite like it gets today. You know what I'm saying? Making sure to protect those kids from everything. Our kids, we were thrown in cars with no belts, no seat belts. We were 5 or 6 in the back of a truck, Do a head count when you get there, make sure everybody's still there. I mean, we didn't have helmets and knee pads on our bicycles and skateboards. We flew over the handlebars of our bikes. Okay, if you've never done that, you never really were in the 70s or 80s, someone who rode a bike. That means you didn't take some, like a big can and a block of wood and try to make a ramp out of that, okay? Or accidentally come too quick on a curb that hit the tire or a rock and you went over the top. How many of you went over the top of handlebars? Good job. And somehow you lived. And as a matter of fact, I bet you most of you never broke anything. And you went over it, nothing broke. You got scraped up and cut up and whatever, nothing broke. We were like indestructible. Nowadays, a kid does almost anything and breaks something. I was like, you could do almost anything to us and we wouldn't break, What does that have to do with all of this? It has to do with, we have to understand life is a test, it's a journey. And the tester, the trier, has a role that's called HaSatan. That's the role of the tester, it's called HaSatan, or the devil, right? And so we have that in our lives. And we have to understand that that's going to come up on a regular basis for us in our experience. We're gonna go through our little moment of, let's go back to the beginning of this story. Yeshua is just starting his ministry, right? He just got immersed and he's going out to start his ministry and he goes out into the wilderness. So in a sense, he's declaring, I'm somebody in his context, right? In the context of the Almighty, but I'm somebody. You do that when you get baptized and immersed, right? You go in a mikveh and you come out, I'm somebody. I'm a child of the living Elohim. You wear your tzitzit, I'm somebody, okay? You say, I can't come into work on Saturday because of Torah, I'm somebody. Well, guess what? Once you declare you're somebody, HaSatan's gonna come in and say, let's see if you're somebody. Let's see if you mean what you said. Let's see if you are who you think you are. See, Yeshua passed the test because he said, well, if you are this, do this. He said, no, because I'm that, I don't need to do that. As a matter of fact, it's wrong if I do that because I am who I say I am, and that means I know better than to fall for your nonsense, okay? But this stuff is gonna happen in your life as soon as you feel like you may have arrived somewhere. You reached a level, all right? All right, I don't know that I said this in the level up class. I'm gonna say it now, if I forget to say it for Sukkot, okay? You're going to get tested each time you reach a new level to see if you belong there. Did you hear what I said? You understand? You're striving to level up, and all of a sudden you're a level up in your income, a level up in your health, a level up in relationship, whatever you just leveled up, HaSatan's gonna come in and say, let's see if you're real. Do you really belong at level 2, or really you still level 1? Because you may fail that test, you realize, no, I'm still level 1. I got a little taste of level 2, but I failed, okay? You might find that out, let's say you're doing your finances, and the first time something comes up that you want, but you don't want to wait for it, and you go and take out a loan for it, or you go and put it on your credit card and fail. You thought you'd leveled up because you paid your debt off and now you're debt free, and then you get right back in debt. Something's gonna come up to see whether or not you actually leveled up. This is Yeshua leveling up. Not that he's leveling up necessarily, but he was going around and doing his life and everything else, and now he's about to change his path from carpenter, doing whatever he was doing, to this discipler, right? This rabbi, teacher, discipler. There's a new level. And so first thing that happens is, okay, are you really this guy that's going to do all that? So Satan is like, let's see if you're really that guy. Do you understand what you're supposed to be doing? Oh, you do. You know that God's everything and you're not supposed to put anything above him. You don't worship anybody but him. You get all of that. Okay, good. He tested that. Just like Moses was tested and Abraham was tested, anybody with any kind of authority and power was tested. David was tested. Some of them failed. They had their weak moments. Look, we watch this greatness of King David, and then all of a sudden, guess what we find out? He's got a weakness for a married woman. Who knew? HaSatan knew. Put a little temptation out there. What are you going to do with that? David failed the test badly, okay? Because it was a weakness. And Yah's like, if I'm going to have David be what I need him to be, I got to get all this stuff out of him. So somebody orchestrates this perfect storm of this woman being outside bathing just where he could see her doing it so that he could be tempted, okay? I mean, could have had all kinds of timing where that never happened. But just so happened the location of where he was and where she was and what was going on was ideal for this, okay? And she happened to be someone that he was like, ooh. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, whatever. It was somebody that he would be like, wow. But he failed the test. But we would not know that he had that weakness that needed to be addressed if it hadn't been brought out. And I can assume that he would never be tempted by that again. We don't see him having that problem again, okay? And he owned it as best as he could after the fact, okay? But this is what we need to understand. You have to be tested every time you move up a level, okay? You think you finally got your marriage working? It's gonna get tested. You think you finally got your finances working? It's gonna get tested. You think you finally got your health working? It's gonna get tested. Not tested meaning you're gonna have something terrible happen to your health, but something will tempt you to derail whatever you were doing to get the health. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're doing something that's working, but then all of a sudden, I'll tell you what happened to me. I did, and I don't know that I would have stuck with it anyway, but I was doing raw vegan one year. This goes back a long time. And I started it after Passover, right after unleavened bread, okay? And then I kept it going all the way to Sukkot. And in those days, we used to go to the Mountain Lake Ranch as a group to keep Sukkot, about 100 of us, 150 maybe. So it's a small group, and we made all our meals there, and we had a meal plan. And when I say all, I mean we ate 3 meals a day together. And we cooked the meals together, we made it all together. It was a meal plan. Like here, we only have like 4 or 5 meals during the week. We had 3 a day, all right? Now, so with that being, so some of you think, wow, the kitchen's a lot of work. Imagine we're doing 3 meals a day, okay? For all 8 days, all right? Now, that being said, I thought, I'll just eat what everybody else is eating. It's gonna be too hard to maintain my diet with everybody here, away from my house, away from my normal stuff and my routine, okay? And guess what I never did? I never got right back onto it. I never did it again. It derailed what I was doing. I could have been inconvenienced and figured out a way to make it work if I really wanted to, okay? But you know what? I used to work out all the time. You know what's the hardest thing to do? Start. Once I go to the gym on a regular basis, it's not a problem going to the gym on a regular basis. Starting. So all you need is just something to derail you and you'll be screwed for a while until you get back on it. It takes a while to get back. Does that make any sense to anybody? So the weak spot, the tempter, the temptations are gonna come in to see, are you serious? Are you serious? You know? Some of you will finally get your $1,000 emergency fund, and as soon as you get it, within a month, the refrigerator breaks. Now you gotta spend the whole money, and you're all mad that you had to spend the money because you finally got it. But that's what it was for. So you should be happy. Not happy you had to spend it, but happy that you had it. But it took so long for me to build it, and I gotta build it again. That's the way it works. It's working correctly. Why are you upset? So then somebody might say, well, what's the point? I'm just gonna end up spending it anyway. That's the point. that you have it, then you don't have to borrow it. But some people will get discouraged. Same thing with this journey. Oh, I started keeping Torah, then all these things started falling apart in my life. Well, it wants to see if you're going to blame Torah or not. I've had people that actually blame this walk for all the stuff in their life going wrong because it didn't really appear to them, didn't really happen until they started doing this walk. No, it was probably already happening. They just were ignoring it. Or it hadn't come to a head enough. But the tempting is going to be there at some point to see, are you serious? You know that's like one of the most important things to Yah? It doesn't really say that in any specific wording. He's basically saying, do you mean what you say? Are you committed to this? How serious are you about this walk and the covenant you have with me? And you can't just go, well, I'm really serious. No, I don't want to hear those words. I want to see it. He wants to see it. So then he says to HaSatan, have at it. He was sent by him. If he's in your life, he sent him. Because he knows there's something weak there that needs to come out. Okay? Like he sent him to Job. Remember, the idea of Job came out of whose mouth? Yahweh's mouth. Yahweh says to HaSatan, have you considered that guy? Guess what? Every one of you has had that come out of his mouth probably. Have you considered Maisie? Have you considered Sarah Beth? Have you considered Elder Billy? Have you considered Brian? Have you considered, right? And so, yeah, he's been you've been put on his radar. Because he needs you to be considered to see where your weak spots are, to see if you're serious and how committed you are. Does that make any sense to anybody? You might not think it's fair, and you might not like it, but that's what I see, playing out in the book. Okay, and I think we need to really embrace this. We need to get this. Does it make sense? All right, let's go before the Father. Father, we come before you, and Father, we are truly, as hard as it is to say this, we appreciate how you use HaSatan to help us deal with our stuff, to help us become strong in areas that we are weak by recognizing that we are weak. We appreciate that he's a useful tool in your hands, just doing his job. Now, we don't like him. We don't want to be like him. We don't want to listen to him and follow him, but we understand how you use him, okay? So, Father, help us to recognize that the solution is strength in you. Strength in all areas of our life, but strength through you, in you, okay, and from you. But yet we have to become strong. We don't rely on your strength. We want to make it so that we have developed the strength you have, right? Like let this mind be in you, and so that we think like Yeshua. We want the strength of the Almighty in us. The strength to say no to temptation. The strength that Yeshua had in the wilderness battle. Help us to develop your strength. We know you're not going to just give it to us fiat. You're not just going to go, whoop, there you go. All right? But give us the opportunities, encourage us that we can do it so that we can have your strength in us, so that we are not weak. So Father, we want to thank you for this teaching. I want to thank you for inspiring me with the information that we shared today, that if anything wasn't yours, that people would just discard that, but anything that was yours, that please, that they would embrace it and apply it in their lives. So Father, we want to come before you and thank you for all these things and give you all glory and honor in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. Amen. Amen.